Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 2, Episode 16. Hi and welcome back to Education on Fire with me, Mark Taylor. I'm still here at Bett and I'm delighted to be joined by the COO of DigiExam, Gustav Nordback. And they are, as of yesterday, award winners. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
So let's start at the beginning and just tell us a little bit of a background about the company and how you got going and your journey through to being an award winner here at Bett.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's been an incredible journey. The two co-founders, Johan and Nima, they were studying at the Stockholm School of Economics, and this was about 5 years ago. And they were doing exams on pen and paper. And, being digital natives, this was obviously a very awkward experience, given that you do everything else digitally. And in speaking to the professors and the administration at the university, the answer was, no, we can't do digital exams because there are no reliable and secure platforms. So that was the trigger point. That was really what got them going to find a way to solve for not just the students, who find the whole pen and paper experience very awkward and time consuming, but then also to solve for the problem the educator side has, which is really just, a lot of inefficiencies and other issues in just the whole delivering and grading and marking exams. So that was the trigger point. And from there on, they really started kind of working on the product. And 3 years ago, we launched our first product, and together with the Stockholm School of Economics, who was our first client, and a secondary school in Sweden. And after that, the rest is history.
Fantastic. And in terms of what it looks like as a teacher or a school, I mean, how does the process work, sort of on a practical exam basis? And I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a cloud-based assessment platform, and the teacher or professor will log on to a web application and create the exam. Create their own exams. They can reuse old content, but they can also share. The whole point is to collaborate with their teacher colleagues or and so forth. So create their own or share their content, and in a very simple and kind of easy to use interface. And then the student downloads a client onto their laptop or their device, and basically the exam gets delivered through that client. And we've solved the whole process in this way simply because we want to assure that if there is an issue with the internet, or if there is any idiosyncratic risk with a laptop crashing, as there always is, there will be no data loss whatsoever. There is no risk. So, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just thinking then that time is such a big pressure in education now, and like you say, you have exam conditions and you're setting these things up in, like you say, bad Wi-Fi or just one of those days where it all goes down. Just the impetus of having to reset that whole thing would just be an absolute nightmare. So to have the option of sort of being online, being offline, been able to cover all opportunities is obviously a great asset for any school.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why the a kind of digital transformation in higher education with high stakes exams has been a little bit spotty, if you will, because educators are nervous about if you lose one exam. We had an example in Sweden last week. One of the oldest universities lost 60 exam papers, and that's a huge issue. To ask the students to rewrite the exams in a digital era, that's just not acceptable. So in that, or if the wireless goes down and you lose data, that's just it's a huge risk for any institution. So we want educators to sleep better at night and not run that risk.
Exactly. It sounds like you're doing them a great service just from that point only.
Yeah.
And what's your research and what sort of feedback have you had from about the fact that you're no longer needing pen and paper? And I know people, certainly from when I was at school and when I was studying, that the actual ability to write can be a hindrance as much as anything. If you've got great content in your head, but you've got a time structure and all the rest of it, and the need to be able to just get that information out there, which now you don't need a pen and paper and your handwriting skills and all the rest of it, makes life much easier. So have you had that as a real positive feedback from those types of students?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the feedback we get is, first of all, I think there is very limited, if zero, examples of students who start working with DigiExam and then want to go to pen and paper because they actually love the user experience. As you point out, you structure your answers differently digitally than you do with pen and paper. And if you're used to that in the way you operate usually, it's very difficult to then reset and think differently, structure it differently. It's more time consuming and it's a hindrance. So what we find is in the feedback we get from students, they love it. From the educator side, they also see the results improving. Because you actually get the students' full potential when they're writing the exam. So you take out any noise from the exam delivery, which already is a pretty anxious process for the student.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
So yeah.
And in terms of availability, I mean, you say it started in Sweden. How far have you managed to expand in terms of going global? You're obviously here in London at the minute, but does it go across to the US and Asia, and is it particularly European based?
Yeah, absolutely. So today we have about 2,200 institutions who are using our platform across about 80 countries. And the majority is in Europe, and Sweden is obviously the single largest market, where we have about over 40% of upper secondary schools. Now the US is really gaining traction for us, and we have quite a few, both secondary schools but also higher educational institutions who have launched and started working with us, and super excited about that. But also UK is really interesting for us, and we have many very recent customers. Primarily on the higher education side here, so we're super excited about that. And
how does it work in terms of creating the exam? And do you have templates that you use, or is it really just the organisation can create the exam themselves and they have complete control over everything that goes on within that process?
So the organization has complete control over that, and basically, it's a very simple exam creation process. Again, you can reuse content that you have, just attach and copy in whatever questions, and so it's very simple to reuse old content that you have or content that you've created and saved in your own exam library. And it's both your kind of free text and both long answer, short answer, but also multiple choice, single choice questions, and also obviously cater for mathematical questions where we have an equation editor that makes it very user friendly to answer your typical math questions.
And if I'm an organisation looking to use it, where do I go? What do I go? What do I get to see? Is there a chance to sort of try it out before you buy, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So DigiExam.com, our homepage, and there you can literally register for a free teacher account where you can just try it in a limited fashion and just see how you like it. Create your own exam and trial it on a smaller group of students, and then you can also just request an in-depth demo if you want through either a personal demo or a webinar. And we'd love to interact and get you started.
Fantastic. And what sort of cost implication is there? How much is it? Is it per student, or is it a flat fee for organisations? How does the cost structure work?
So it's a per student license with unlimited exams and unlimited teacher and administrator accounts. Yeah.
And what's the actual cost if it was for a UK organisation? Do you have the actual figure for per student for that?
Yeah, so it's £14 for a higher educational institution.
So you can see that's great value if you're going to be using it all the way through your organisation and throughout their sort of educational life within the organisation as well. Because like I say, especially in this day and age, there's plenty of exams to get through. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's not only that; it's also the fact that we save around 40% of the time we've done different research with our existing client base, and you can save through just efficiencies in the process 40% of the administrative time, and that saves you a lot of your expense on an annual basis as an organization, and paper.
Yeah, and energy,
yeah.
which is probably a non-quantifiable amount of money. Exactly. Oh, fantastic. So you're an award winner here at Bett. Tell us about which award you're up for and what you gained.
Yeah, so that was a great experience. We were shortlisted for 3 awards. It was the ICT Innovator of the Year, it was the International Digital Resource, and then the final award, which was the one that we won, was Higher Education and Further Education Digital Services. So yeah, that was a fantastic experience, and a fantastic experience throughout the whole kind of process of the awards. It was very impressed with how the whole application and that whole process went about. But super excited and humbled because it was very very impressive companies we were up against, and in general it's just very humbling to be here at Bett to see so much innovation, so many great entrepreneurs, and so yeah, super excited about that.
And it really is a great event, isn't it? I mean, there are some tiny startups here, and there are some massive organisations, and everything in between. And one of the things I've been really impressed about is the fact there are so many people just coming to visit, and so many press and various things in and out. And yet, all the dealings I've had with them have just been quick, clear, easy, and just so well organised. It's been a real sort of dream of an event. So they've really got it down to a fine art, I think.
Yeah, very, very impressed, and I guess they have 30 plus years of experience, so they've grown into it.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think given the amount of visitors and from across the globe, I think it's been very well run.
Well, thanks so much for talking to me, and congratulations on the award. And all the best for the future. And it's all the links and details of everything we've talked about will be on the educationonfire.com show notes on the webpage. And speak to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information, please go to educationonfire.com.